Welcome back, YouTube. Taiji now. I look like a old man who's in a sick living home right now with this. I don't know what's going on today, but I swear I'm not dying. It's just it's a little chilly. Anyways, hope you guys are doing well. We're doing a continuation of last week's video where I talked about kind of the situation of teaching and all of that. And today I wanted to go over more of like what people should look out for before they come in. I wanted to go over what people should look out for when they first come to Korea, especially because I think now, as I said before, I think a lot more foreigners are coming in maybe to teach English or go to school or things like that. I'm not entirely sure, but I think there is or I definitely know that there is an influx of foreigners who are coming in. So without further ado, let's get started on what you need to know before you start working as an English teacher when you come to Korea. So welcome. Come join the few of us who have no idea what they're going to do with their lives after they leave university, or if you are in university and just don't know what you want to do. You're not sure what job you want to get. Maybe there aren't any jobs you want to get. Who knows? You heard that there is excellent business opportunity in teaching English in another country, and you've nailed it down to Korea as the country that you want to do. Congratulations. There are so many steps involved, and I know that there's so many different reasons for why people will come here to teach English, whether you just want to be here for a year and explore, you want to try to live in another country. Whatever it is, you nailed the dot. Whatever it is, you nailed the idea, and now you want to come. So in a previous episode, I have gone over all the details of the visa requirements that you need for transferring to Korea specifically. I don't know about other countries. So today we're just going over exactly what you should look out for when you find a job or when you're looking for a job and getting the contract signed and all of that. I want to guarantee people's safety as much as possible, because even though Korea is a great country, there are some bad people here. There are some bad academy owners that will take advantage of people, unfortunately. Again, as I said before, maybe less so than previously, but never know. I personally never experienced it, but I think it's still a thing that happens. And I mean, that's the case wherever you go. So let's be safe together. Anyways, so you're looking for a job. Where to look? Well, the best website I know of is Dave's ESL Cafe. That's the one that you're going to look out for. I mean, there are other websites, but that's, I think, the top-notch website to look for jobs in Korea. All the recruiters and schools will post directly on there. Now then, when you're scrolling through these, keep in mind that when you're looking at recruiters, try to filter through all of that. I think I mentioned it before again in the previous video. Do not take the first job. Try to kind of filter what you want and all of that. Now you could go through the more direct program, which is through Epic, but their salary, as the last I've checked, I haven't checked it recently, is super low. And as I stated before, do not go for a low salary. It's not worth it. They do provide safety, which is nice, and they do provide all these different things for you. But at the end of the day, that salary is really not good. That's a crying shame. I hope that they have updated it. Maybe I'll check it out after this and see if they have, and then post an update for it. But they don't pay well as last I've checked. So yes, it's got its good sides, but it's also not great. So I recommend just going through Dave's ESL Cafe and trying to find a job directly yourself. Yes, it takes some time, but it'll be worth it in the end. Now then, maybe you've gone through the recruiter, maybe you found a school and they want to give you a contract. Look over this contract like you are signing your life away, okay? Really look at every single detail of the contract, because you've got to make sure there are certain things on there written. Now, I know that this makes sense. Like, Kevin, what are you talking about? You should always read the contract. You should always make sure. Yes, that much is obvious. But again, as I said before, these guys are going to pressure you to sign the contract as soon as possible. So maybe there's going to be something on there that you missed. Or maybe there's something you didn't really think about. Maybe there's something that you like, oh, I didn't think about this, so that could be a problem. So I'm giving you some tips here to make sure what's written clearly on there. The first one, the biggest one, I think, is besides the pay, is the vacation days. Now, unfortunately, you're not really going to get any more than 11 vacation days a year. Technically, they should be giving you 12, but they get away with it with 11. So just make sure that there's the standard 11 vacation days included in your contract. Most contracts will include that on there, but there is a little tip that I'd recommend is that you ask when the vacation days are. Now, they're always going to be like, oh, well, the vacation days kind of change throughout the year, blah, blah, blah. Just absolutely try to make sure when you're getting the vacation days, if it's like 5 in summer and like 6 in winter or whatever the case is, they're not going to be upfront with you, to be honest, because they do kind of there's no set vacation days. They just kind of choose a random set of days in the year when most people are on vacation, so they don't really lose that much money on those days. It's bad. Anyways, they also don't usually give you the full 5 or 6 days in a row. They give you like 3 days in a row and separate it. Now, not every academy is like this. Some academies will give you the 5 days in a row, Monday to Friday, including Saturday and Sunday, all of that, which is awesome. But most of the time they just give you 2 or 3 days and then they split it up like that. And what they do is, in the end, you don't get those vacation days. They'll just pay you out at the end, like, oh, we didn't give you your vacation days for the year, so here's just the extra money for the days you didn't work. Now, I don't know if there's a way you can get around that. I unfortunately have not been able to like negotiate that in a way where, like, no, I want my vacation days. Maybe you can try to learn from me and be like, hey, look, no, give me the vacation days. I don't want the money, I want the vacation days. But that's up to you. Maybe you're fine with it, maybe you're not fine with it. Either way, make sure those vacation days are stated clearly. Also, see if you can try to make sure that vacation days are separated from sick days. Like, try to figure out what if there are sick days, because sometimes they'll try to make it so a sick day is actually a vacation day. So try to make those separate if you can. Furthermore, these vacation days should be paid vacation days and not included as the holidays. Okay, this should be very clear that holidays and vacation days should be separated. You should be getting holidays off, and on top of that, the vacation days. So make sure those are clearly marked as well. When it comes to pay, make sure that there is a date specified of when you're going to be receiving the money. I have been in contracts where they didn't always specifically state when the pay was going to be made. So in the case of my first job, I never knew when I was getting paid. It was always like, oh, it's been a month, where's my money? And I never got my money. And I'd be like 2 weeks after I worked for a full month, it's like, hey, I kind of need my pay. So make sure that the date is clearly marked. Usually when you get paid is around the time when you first got hired, or like when you had your first day of working. That's typically when you'll get paid. But just anyways, make sure that it's in the contract, just as, again, an added measure of like, hey, this is when I should be getting paid. Another thing to look out for is clearly mention what is your job, right? On the contract, make sure that all the things that you need to do are clearly stated on the contract, and that anything else should not be part of your job. Anything else that's not on there should not be something you have to do. I've never done something outside of my job that was extreme, like, I don't know, try getting coffee for everybody or something like that. I've never had that situation. I don't think many people have had that situation, if at all. But there are some small things that your employer will ask you every now and then, be like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? They're small things, so you just kind of do it anyways. But if you're really like not comfortable doing extra things that are beyond what's stated in the contract, just make sure that it is, whatever you need to do is clearly stated on there. Another thing to clearly state out as well, again, I've always seen this in the contract, so I don't think it's a really big issue, but it's just something that you got to make sure that is there, is the reimbursement for the flight. So this is specifically for people who are first coming into Korea. Usually employers will pay the flight ticket. Now, this has been changed a little bit in how they do it. Before, the academies would actually book the flight, and maybe some still do that now. But they would book the flight for you, they pay it in advance, you get on the flight and you arrive in Korea at a certain time. But these days, or across the years, there have been really not great foreigners who have come in, taken advantage of that, gotten the free flight, came to Korea, enjoyed their time, and not have gone to work. Basically, they just came in for like a week and then left. That was it. And that really sucks. That is really, really, really bad for the academy, and it really sucks for them. So I can understand that these days a lot of academies don't pay that in advance. They do require you to pay for the plane ticket, but they will reimburse you. But usually the reimbursement is maybe about a month or two after you work. It really depends. This is something that you also need to look out for on the contract, or specifically have it written down when you're going to get the reimbursement or how you're going to get the reimbursement, all of that. Just make sure that's written on the contract, because I've seen people get a reimbursement like 6 months after they've been working, and that I think is really too long. That is way, way, way too long. After a month or so, I can kind of understand, but yeah, after 6 months, that's kind of like ridiculous. So make sure that isn't written in the contract, when you'll get the reimbursement, how you'll get the reimbursement, all of that. Furthermore, if you plan on going back, right, if you're not going to stay in the country, also make sure that you get a return flight reimbursement on the contract, because a lot of academies will do that. They'll pay for your flight back home usually, and that, I'm not sure how they reimburse that. I assume they pay for that flight right away at the end of your salary on top of your severance. I assume that's how that works. But if you do plan on flying back home, make sure it is written on the contract how you'll be getting that money. Now, this is a little added tip. If you plan on staying in Korea, now I know that no one can really know this right away, but if you think you're going to stay in Korea, try to alter your contract in a way that you don't need the reimbursement flight back home, but maybe a moving fee if you plan on moving. You can kind of ask like, hey, can I get written in my contract stated that if I do not take a flight back home, can I get a moving fee to help me move to another city or another apartment or whatever it is? Just in case maybe you don't like that job and you feel like, oh, I want to try to live in another city or whatever, it would be a good idea to have some kind of amount, because it will really help you in the long end. Moving in Korea is super expensive. I think I've done a video about it. It's really a lot of money. So if you can get some help from your academy to like help pay a little bit of that moving fee or moving cost, that'll help you in the long run. So again, just another little tip, try to get that written in your contract if you can. Other standard stuff to look for: working hours and overtime pay. Now, again, I've never worked outside of my working hours. Again, I've been lucky, but always got to make sure the working hours are clearly stated, what time you're working, and they'll always do this. Again, it's probably almost every academy. There'll be a start time, which is when classes officially start, but then there is a start time where you have to be there, which is usually an hour ahead of time. Yeah, it's a little annoying, but it does give you that time to prepare. So for example, in my case, my first class is at 2 p.m., but I gotta be there at 1 p.m. So I do have to be there an hour earlier. Now, I have never been in a situation where my finishing time, which is 7 o'clock now, I've never been in an academy where they make me work longer than the time that I'm supposed to. I always clock out exactly 7, or if it was 9 or 10 or whatever, I was out the door at that time. No one's made me leave, or no one's made me stay past that time, right? So hopefully that doesn't happen to any of you where the situation is like, oh, you got to stay longer. I don't think that will happen. But again, make sure the working time is clearly indicated. As for working overtime, again, I've never worked overtime, so I've never had that situation where I needed the overtime pay or anything. But again, make sure it's on there, how much you're getting paid, how many hours overtime counts, blah, blah, blah. Now, some academies will say on the contract that you might have to work on a Saturday. Now, these are usually the kindergarten academies, because sometimes they have some event. This will be the only time that is an overtime pay. I have had the situation in my first job where I had to come in on a Saturday. It wasn't too bad. I think the situation is really dependent per person. Honestly, I only worked, I think, one Saturday with that kindergarten academy. Maybe other academies have a few more Saturdays, but really, if you're working on a Saturday at academy, I think they don't make you come in like multiple times a year. Maybe it's once or twice a year. But again, make sure how many times, if you have to come on a Saturday. And it's usually for like a few hours. It's not like a whole day. But if you think that's not something you want to do, just tell them, hey, look, I'm not comfortable coming in on a Saturday, even if it's for a few hours. I don't think I want this kind of job. So really just check that as well. Now, for most academies, you'll be working about 8 hours. It's very rare that you'll find an academy, for example, like mine, where you work less than 8 hours, but do find out the break time, right? Find out how long the break time is, if you can go outside to eat, if you have to stay in to eat, whatever the situation is, do find those out. And again, make sure it's clearly stated in the contract. I will say that so many times. You gotta make sure all these things, because they will take advantage of anything that you don't think of. So make sure everything's clearly stated in the contract. Can't say that enough. There are some standard things to look out for, but nothing too crazy with like all the other basic requirements like health insurance, pension, depending if you're from a certain country or not. Those things are all been pretty standard. I can't say that I've ever been in a position where an employer has not paid those. And the tax rate is always fixed, so it's hard for me to tell whether they're changing the tax rate or not on you. I think in most cases, the academy will pay the correct amount for the insurance and pension and all of that, as well as the severance. Now, severance is just 1 month pay that you get at the end of your contract for fulfilling 1 year. And usually they'll pay that all together with your salary, your final salary. However, I do have a situation that happened in my last job where that wasn't exactly the case. So again, make sure it's in your contract. I did get my severance. However, my previous employer asked that I had to open a new bank account just for getting the severance pay. I cannot tell you how annoying and frustrating that was to have to open a separate bank account just so I could get my severance money. I wish I could understand why I had to do that, and to this day, I'm still frustrated and angry about that. Technically, I didn't have to fully open a bank account. I could just open like a saving thing that allowed me to get my severance, so it wasn't a full account. But either way, it was super annoying, super all kinds of mean words for a previous employer because of that situation. I still don't understand why they couldn't just pay to my regular account my severance. So if you don't want to end up in that kind of situation, make sure your severance pay, how you're getting paid, is written on the contract. Be like, hey, am I going to get this paid to my bank account? Is it going to be a separate payment? How is that going to be made? And again, make sure that it is your full month's pay. Now, again, that was only one job. Maybe that'll never happen to anybody, but my experience, if anything, hopefully you learn from it and it doesn't happen to you. Now then, moving on to the best benefit of the job, which is free apartment. That is so nice. It's so good. I can understand why academies don't pay you so much because they're paying for your apartment, but it's still not justifiable. However, getting the free apartment is so good. So what should you look out for in the contract for that? The thing you need to look out for is how they're paying, what they're including in the apartment. So usually they'll say something like apartment included or housing included, something like that. Make sure that it has all the basic amenities: a fridge, a washer, a bed to sleep on. Make sure that those things are there. And maybe you can negotiate a little and be like, hey, can I get like a bedside table or a microwave or something? Maybe you can ask them, be like, to add a little something, or a dresser. A dresser is probably like the biggest thing you should ask for because they usually don't include those. My last job, the apartment kind of had a built-in dresser. My second job, the guy gave me a dresser. Try to get one because there usually will not be a dresser, and you think it's something you don't need until you arrive here. It's like, where do I put my clothes? So try to see if you can get something like that added in. But in most cases, I think the apartment will be stocked, because the thing is, when you move to an apartment in Korea, I think it's the same thing in America. I believe it is. I'm not sure. But all apartments do not have anything in there. There's no fridge, there's no washers, nothing. Unless the person owned it and left it there for you to use, there's usually not going to be anything inside. So the school's got to usually provide it. So if you're not sure because it doesn't say in the contract, here to say it with me, make sure it's stated in the contract. When it comes to the housing as well, you will usually have to pay the utilities, and they'll probably write something in the contract about that because, of course, they want to make sure they don't have to pay the utilities. So that will probably be written in there that you have to pay utilities. What do utilities include? Gas, water, electricity. Don't worry, these three things are super cheap. Gas or electricity can be it's more expensive depending on whether you use the boiler or the AC a lot in the seasons, and depending on what kind of apartment you live in. If it's a full apartment, a villa, a office-tel, or a like kind of house, or of a kind of house, the rates kind of depend. But water has always been super cheap, and my electricity and gas bills are usually always pretty cheap. I think recently my gas bill has been a little more expensive because it's been cold lately, but other than that, utilities are usually not that much, so I wouldn't worry about that. And that's for the most part all the things you should look for. The last little nitpicky things that I would keep an eye on, which would be like the date that you're starting and the date that you're ending. Usually the date you're ending is 1 day less than the day that you started, so for a year. So for example, if you started June 2nd of 2024, your last day will be June 1st of 2025. It's kind of like 1 day less. Days will be marked at like the top of the contract, so I don't think that's something you really have to worry about too much. Just make sure you go over and be like, okay, yeah, that's what I wanted, that's what I said, so let's agree to that. Oh, but going over the vacation days one last time, I almost forgot. If you don't get all of your vacation days assigned to you, make sure that it's written in the contract that you will get paid out, or you will be given the vacation days at the end of your contract. So what does this mean? So if you choose to get paid out, that means that you'll work to the full contract. So from June 2nd 1 year all the way to June 1st of the next year, but you'll get paid a little bit extra for the vacation days that you didn't receive, however much that is. Or if you choose to take your vacation days at the end, so what they'll do is they'll let you finish the contract a little bit earlier based off of how many vacation days. So if you have 2 vacation days, you'll finish May 30th or May 29th, something like that, whatever the 2 days fall previously, which is also kind of nice. Given the choice, it's really good. Obviously, it's just better if you get the vacation days all outright, but again, if you're not sure if you're going to get all the vacation days, make sure it's written in the contract that it states that if you don't get all the vacation days, you'll get paid out, or it will be given to you at the end, so you can leave your contract earlier. Just something to look out for. Other things that are a little nitpicky, just work ethic, or what you'll be allowed to wear at work and how to interact with teachers and all of that. All that's pretty standard. If you've had a job, all of these are pretty simple things. Don't dress inappropriately, be nice to your coworkers, all that kind of stuff. All that stuff is really simple. Nothing really too crazy about those parts of the contract. All usually pretty standard. So I hope with these details, you guys can make informed decisions when you guys choose a school to work for. Now, try to memorize or keep the recruiter's number or email contact just in case. Recruiters don't usually have your best interests at heart. They're just in it to make some money, but it never hurts to keep their contact in case anything goes wrong. You can talk to them, be like, hey, the school that you brought me to, the contract is not valid, like they've been breaking all these rules and things like that. Contact them first and then contact immigration in case there's really a lot of problems, because usually the one in charge of getting you that job is also in some small part in charge of you because they got you the job. But as I said before, this video, I wanted to make it specifically for people who are really worried or not sure how getting the contract or getting the job in Korea is going to be like. Again, if you have any questions, or if there's people who are living here and watching my videos and feel like I missed something that I should talk about, please let me know. That way we can let other people know what they should look out for. The best thing, as I said before, is just go through multiple jobs, look through multiple contracts, and keep talking to the recruiter / employer as much as possible. If you feel like there's anything that's like a little weird, like if you ask for something to be on the contract, but they're like, well, why are you asking for that? You don't need to ask about that. It's implied. That's probably your sign to be like, okay, I'm not comfortable with this job if you're going to be like that. You reserve the right to be picky, because these academies literally can pick from thousands of people coming into the country. So they aren't really concerned of just getting you. They can get anybody, honestly. So if you want to make sure that you actually get a cool job, or if you actually want to come to Korea safely, make sure that you feel comfortable in doing so. All right, that is your right. And the academies, if you feel like this one academy is not good enough, they'll find someone else. You know, don't even worry about it. Don't even think about it. Be like, hey, look, I don't feel comfortable. I'm not going to work with you. Move on. They'll find another sucker. That's just how it works. So take your time. But other than that, I hope you guys do make really cool decisions. And I think, honestly, coming to Korea is a really great decision. And I hope more people do choose to do it. Just be smart about it. And as I said in the previous video, don't stay on the E2. Go for F2, man. Go for F2. But thanks so much, guys, for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And like and subscribe for more information and all of that stuff. I'll see you guys next week for another awesome video. Thank you so much. Peace.